Hey folks, today we are taking a look at the Fall of Cybertron Deluxe Class Combaticons. We have Swindle, Brawl, Onslaught, Vortex, and Blastoff. Now these are the Skittle colors that everybody seems to love. Well, okay, not everybody. Now as you may know that these figures are going to be seen 3 different times in 3 different paint schemes. We have the San Diego Comic-Con 2012 Bruticus set, which are the in-game color set. This set, the ones we have here, which are going to be found at retail, and then the Generation 2 Amazon and Big Bad Toy Store exclusive set. So I got these guys at Kapow Toys. Now normally they don't ship to the US, but for me they made an exception. So I did buy the figures, and here they are, right in my hands. So this review is going to be a little bit different. Since we're going to be taking a look at all 5 of them at once, what I'm going to do is do each figure individually, and then we'll do the combination. And I've also had a request from not one, but about 15 different people to have 1, the bios of the figures, and 2, the tech specs of the figures. So when we go to another figure, or when we go to a figure individually, you're going to hear their bio, and you're going to see their tech spec and their in-game original artwork here in the video. So, let's get to it.
Onslaught believes precision and planning are the keys to success. He spends hours devising battle plans, considering contingencies, and deliberating troop disposition before ever committing his forces to battle. Once the fight has joined, however, no robot is a fiercer fighter.
Onslaught is modeled in this very weird kind of dark neon and then bright neon green, blue, black. His face sculpt is classic Onslaught. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of detail that's able to be seen, given that his whole head is black except for his visor, which is yellowish. The figure itself in robot mode looks okay, except when you turn the thing around. He's got a lot of junk in the back, and that is unfortunately due to the fact that he forms the torso of Bruticus. There's not much you can do to hide that. The other main issue in robot mode is the fact that his legs don't have any forward and back movement. I'll show you here when we talk about the Poseability. And there's a specific reason for that, and that also has to do with the combination. I'm kind of glad that they didn't give any Poseability there, because that would make the figure virtually Bruticus virtually unable to stand. But we'll talk about that here in a little bit. One thing that I did notice is that the forearms and the gun are the exact same color. Not particularly a good idea, in my opinion. I don't like the fact that those are the same color, because there's no differentiation when he's holding the gun. Overall, though, the robot mode isn't too bad. He does kind of have a Quasimodo hunchback look to him, and his posability is severely hampered. Speaking of the figure's posability, head can swivel, arms are on this weird hinge joint, which is part of the transformation. There's a ball joint run underneath that, and then a hinge joint for the arm. Legs, no movement backwards or forwards. It is locked into position, but there is a ratchet that allows in and out movement, or along the sides. And then the knees can bend, but not very much. And then that's it for the articulation. Posing this guy, very, very limited. Not that great. Oh, I did forget that there is movement here in the shoulders, but that has to do with the transformation in the combine mode. Transformation for Onslaught is rather interesting. You kind of do a half combine mode, sort of. To start with, what we're going to do is take the legs and fold them up at the outside of the shins, and then they will peg into these little pegs right above the knees. So flip that up like that. Then reach behind here and take this big piece right here and fold it all the way out and push it down on its double hinge, and then fold it up into the base of his crotch, or his butt actually. Then there are these little holes on the sides of this big piece that will peg into these pegs right inside the legs. So you just kind of have to get it lined up. Really, you do have to force things into place here. It's not that easy sometimes. Next, what we're going to do is push the robot head down, and then fold the entire torso back along this hinge right above, right in his stomach, and then push that back as far back as it will go, and then take the arms and rotate them so that these posts are pointing forward and the wheels are pointing down. There we go. And then what we're going to do is take the arms and fold them up and then situate the forearms such that they're pointing, the hands are pointing back along the vehicle mode. And the robot head does have a tendency to pop up in this case, and I do have a tendency to pop ball joints. Sorry, and I probably got that all off camera. So there we go. That is the vehicle mode. So what we do next is take the weapon, and there are pegs right under the top of the weapon, and peg them into the forearms. So we have his cannons. And sometimes this works cleanly, and sometimes it doesn't. There we go. So there is the vehicle mode. This is pretty lame. I will admit that. There's a lot I don't like about this mode. You've got this huge opening here in the back. You've got Bruticus' head looking out the back practically. From the front angle, it looks alright. This is not how I envisioned Onslaught to be. I would expect more of this dual cannon, instead of it pointing directly at the ground, to be mounted maybe back here, pointing up and forward a little bit. But vehicle mode's not awful. So now that we've taken a look at Onslaught, let's take a look at robot number 2.
Blastoff disguises the horrible loneliness he feels behind utter contempt for anyone who can't reach orbit under their own power. From his isolated position in orbit, he can fry and autobots his comrades designate with powerful X-ray lasers, or defend to join his fellows in forming the mighty Decepticon Bruticus.
Robot number 2 is Blastoff. Now Blastoff here is in robot mode, and I like this figure a lot. This guy looks really, really cool in robot mode. It is just really nice looking. The figure is modeled in primarily 2 different shades of purple, black, and yellow with silver highlights. And the silver highlights really make it, especially in the shoulder pads and on the chest and in the face. It's just a very nice robot mode. It's not perfect by any means, but it is very nice looking, and for the most part the figure holds together pretty well. The shoulder pads are a little bit of an issue, even though there are ball joints holding everything into place nicely. They don't peg in and they wobble all about because they are plugged into the same ball joint that the arm is. The head sculpt is really nice. I think the head sculpt is just fantastic on Blastoff. It works really well, and I like it a lot. Poseability for this guy is pretty good. Head is on a swivel. Shoulders and upper arms are on a ball joint here, and then a swivel joint up in the actual shoulder pad, and then a ball joint at the elbow. What I like to call a dual swivel joint, so you've got forwards and backwards on the leg, and then in and out, and then a swivel right below that, and then a hinge joint at the knee. No feet joints, but the feet are slightly kind of molded in there. The overall look of the figure is quite nice, and it's somewhat balanced. I think it's a lot better balanced than some of the other figures, even when you look at it from behind. Yeah, he's got giant shoulder pads, but it's not that big of a deal, honestly. I think it works pretty well. Transformation for this guy is pretty simple, but satisfying. To start off with, we'll take the arms and we'll actually collapse them up into the shoulder pads. So the inside of the forearm will peg into this peg on the upper arm. So just get that into place. And then what we'll do is we'll come into the back and fold this panel out, and then unpeg the arm hinges from the sides of the robot mode. Now this I need to stress. These little peg holes right here where my finger is have these little pegs plugging into it. Now just the few times I've transformed it, you can see the damage that's occurring on these pegs already. It's almost as if the designers didn't offer enough clearance here, and that is a major issue. I do not want to be transforming this guy all that much because these bits are going to break. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Just the way they're designed, it's going to break. You can't just peg it in. You actually have to kind of push and warp this strut in order to peg into these ports right here. Now that being said, the rest of the transformation is pretty simple and not very hard at all. Fold the chest and the head up, and then bring this panel back down and snap that into place. I like to fold the legs straight down, and then swing these sections back and bring them together. And plug it into the back like that. Put the legs straight out and swivel them so that the feet are pointing out, and what would make the fists for Bruticus are pointing up. And then collapse them in and peg them into place. And then take the little weapons here and peg them into place on the wings. And here we have the vehicle mode. And this is a nice vehicle mode. It's not perfect by any means, but it works. It works. It just really, really works for me. The yellow and the silver and the purple, it all works. And this is a totally believable Cybertronian space shuttle. You even have this huge engine compartment, or what is supposed to be a giant engine compartment. I think this is a very good vehicle mode and a solid figure. There is a little bit of turning here in the vehicle mode that we'll use in the combined mode. But overall, I think this is a really nice vehicle mode. There's not a whole lot of robot kibble, and it works. It's a solid vehicle mode, and it's a lot better than Onslaught's. So let's go ahead and take a look at figure number 3.
Few Autobots fear a fight against Vortex. What they fear is being captured and at his mercy. He uses magnetic grapples to haul helpless captives high into the sky. There he treats them to a terrifying series of swoops, loops, and dives before dropping them to their doom.
Bot number 3 is Vortex the Interrogator. Gotta admit, this guy's my favorite of all of them. I think this guy's just a whole lot of fun. I just love the look of him. I don't know why. I don't know why I love this guy so much. His robot mode just works for me. And maybe it has to do with something that the Vortex level was my favorite level from the Fall of Cybertron game. That could very well be it. But this robot, or this vehicle, this Transformer figure just works for me. It really, really does. And of all these guys, like I said, he's my favorite. I love the color scheme, even though the purple, black, and red you wouldn't think would go together. But it works. At least for me it does. Compared to the other Combaticons, Vortex does feel a bit smaller, and I don't know why, but I think that just has to do with the fact that he's so much thinner than all the other guys. My only real complaint in robot mode is the propeller blades. I wish you could put them on the back of the figure somehow, like he has in the game. I just really wish you could do that, but unfortunately you can't. The head sculpt's really nice. Yeah, it's just a solid purple piece of plastic, but I really like the head sculpt for some reason. It just works for me. Poseability-wise, head is on a ball joint, but it is limited due to these pieces right here on the shoulders. Or, I should say his neck. Shoulders, ball joint, then there's a swivel joint underneath that, and a hinge joint for the elbow. Fists do not move. Legs are on a ball joint, then a swivel joint right above the knee, and a hinge joint at the knee, and another hinge joint at the shin, but that is for the transformation. Pretty poseable figure, but you do have to be wary that the blade here will get in the way sometimes, and well, not just sometimes, all the time. And it does offer, or does cause a little bit of top heaviness, but not that much. Transformation for this guy is actually really, really neat. It's much more complicated than I initially thought. The first thing we're going to do is fold the head straight up, so he's looking straight up. And then take the black pieces on the side of the head and unpeg the entire section from the body. Then you can fold this entire section, the tail section, up over the chest. When you do that, then unpeg, or what I like to do is point the arms straight up like that, and then you can unpeg the shoulders and fold them forward. And just as you do that, you're going to want to twist the hips around like that. When you bring the arms up like this, they're going to pretty much just collapse in upon themselves. So what you want to do is turn it so that the fists are going to be pointing towards the back of the robot mode. And it's a little harder to do with this arm because of the propeller, so I'll just do it over here. So fold that up, flip it so that the arm can fold up like that and fold over the tail fin section. So we'll do the same thing over here, and you just kind of have to play with it. It's not going to be intuitive at first, but once you do it a few times, you will get the hang of it. And when you fold these sections together, or actually press these sections together, you actually, once you get them lined up, that is, don't push them together right away. Instead, get the tail section up underneath, and then push these two arm sections together while the hinges of the tail section are underneath. That way everything will stay together. And then I like to fold the propellers in just a little bit, not all the way. Next thing we're going to do is I like to fold the legs open a little bit and then come back to what are the heels and fold them out to the sides of the legs like that. Yep. And then make sure the leg is straight, and then fold the first section up, or first leg up, and fold out the little stinger. And then you could just peg him into place, and do the same thing on this other side. And just kind of work it so that you can bring the two halves together while getting the hooks that hold the vehicle mode together underneath them. Sometimes it'll go together really smoothly, sometimes it won't. So you just kind of have to play with it. And, you know, sometimes things won't line up, so you just kind of have to deal with it until you can get things situated. And there we go. See the inside here, there's this little hook right here, and that pegs into this section right here. Let's do that. We'll do it on the other side. Hopefully everything gets lined up. Yep, everything got lined up. Fold that little stinger in, and then we could fold the propeller around into place, and open up the propeller, and there we go. Here's the helicopter mode. Now of all the modes, this is the smallest. It just is. And it works for me. It really works for me. I like the look of this helicopter. Yes, it looks like some kind of Cybertronian bug helicopter. I realize that. It kind of looks more like an Insecticon than anything else. But it just works for me. I like it. I like it a lot. And yes, this does feel like the smallest of the vehicle modes, but it's good. Yeah, I'm a fan. What I don't care for, however, are the bright yellow swords. With this color scheme, the bright yellow swords just don't work. This is more of a Swindle color than anything else. But hey, this giant red, purple, and somewhat black helicopter of death works really well for me. Now, I do wish there was a way you can make the more jet-like form he has in the game. Oh well. No big. It's not that big a deal. You still end up with this pretty cool-looking weird helicopter thing.
To the other Combaticons, the war with the Autobot is an epic clash for the fate of the universe. To Swindle, it's a business opportunity, while his teammates relish the frenzy of destruction they cause as Decepticon Bruticus. Swindle quietly calculates how much he can get for selling all the scrap metal that'll be lying around afterward.
Bot number 4 is Swindle, modeled in purple, black, and yellow. He is definitely a unique figure. Though he is very bulky, when you look at him from behind, he's just like Swindle. He's pretty much hollow inside. Now, I do like this figure. I think it looks good. I like the yellow. I think the yellow and the purple work really well for this figure. Unfortunately, there is a major problem. And that has to do with the head. Because of the black head, the gray around it, and then the black neck piece, it's very hard to tell any of the features of the face. And we'll look at the face here in a second. But besides that, overall, this is a good robot mode. I like this robot mode. The Swindle figure's posability is okay. It's not that bad. Head kind of swivels, but there's really nowhere for it to swivel to. Arms are on a ball joint at the shoulder and then a ball joint at the elbow. Fists do not move. Unfortunately, one thing I do want to point out is that there is a hinge back here for the transformation, and I keep wanting to push it up farther. It almost looks like it's supposed to go up farther based on the cut of plastic. But you can kind of get it up to move up a little bit more, but it just keeps falling back down into the place it was before, and that is a shame. There is some hip articulation, ball joint torso articulation, ball joint at the hip, swivel underneath that, hinge just underneath that, and feet have a little bit of articulation thanks to the transformation. It's a very bulky figure. Compared to all the other figures, this guy is definitely the bulkiest. He's also the most fidgety, if that makes any sense, because whenever you move one thing, other things end up moving. Like, so you'll move the arm and you'll accidentally move the shoulder pad around, so you gotta move that back, but when you move that back, you actually end up moving the arm again. It is a pain in the butt to get him posed, but it's not that bad, and it's not that much of a pain. Overall, though, I do like the robot mode. I think it looks good, except for the head. Having an all-black head with no detailing is a real problem. Yeah, you see the visor, but you can't see anything else on the face. It's just all bucket. Transformation for Swindle is rather interesting. We'll start off by just putting the legs together and folding up the feet. That's the best thing to do. Then when we do that, we'll turn the legs around like that, so the wheels are pointing towards the front of the figure. The rest of the transformation is a little bit, I don't want to call it iffy. It's not complicated, but it's annoying. So these bumper pieces actually peg into his abdomen right here. So unpeg those and lift the head up, or lift the entire torso up. Then push the head down into the torso and it will snap into place. Next, what we're going to do is go to the hands, or the forearms, and fold the exhaust pipes over the hands, like that. Then, take the arms and just kind of fold them. You want to fold them down into the body, but you need to make sure that these shoulder pieces are actually above the wheels. Otherwise, you won't be able to fold them in well. So, you fold that in, but they don't peg in anywhere down here, or under here. And that is a little bit of a problem. So what I do is I will just I'll put the shoulder pads there, and then put the arms straight down. Now, I'm not leaving it like that. Next, what we're going to do is take the top of the vehicle mode, or the torso, and put it up like this. It doesn't peg into any place yet. Then collapse the legs at the knees and fold it up at the hips. And then there are these tabs right here. They will peg into one of the slots. There are two sets of slots here on the back, and I normally go for the top one. And if that doesn't work, just go for the bottom one. And peg it in, and they'll snap into place. Now, once you do that, then you can take these arms, and they've got these little pegs right here. They peg into the sides of the legs. And they don't always go in, because these hips or the hinges on the ball joints will just start moving on you, or will get cockeyed somehow. And that's the vehicle mode. It works, but good God, does it need some more color, especially on the wheels. I like the vehicle mode. I don't think the vehicle mode's bad, but it's okay. Other than the bright yellow, black, other than the paint from the plastic, or the coloring the plastic, there's nothing else to the vehicle mode, except for this weird, I don't know what color you call this, maybe gray or bronze. The wheels need color, and out of all the figures, this is the only one I think that the wheels need color on. The vehicle mode is not perfect, and it's definitely not one of my favorites. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. It's just lacking in detail, but it's got good molding, I will say that.
It's possible that the rage that drives Decepticon Bruticus to his untold feats of destructions is contained entirely within Decepticon Brawl. Barely contained at the best of times, this brutal bot's anger is unleashed on the battlefield, turning him into the eye of a storm of devastation.
Bot number 5 is Brawl, and Brawl could be a very cool figure, if not for some major problems. As you saw, Brawl has some severe stability problems, and I don't mean the mental kind. I mean he can't freaking stand up all that well on his own. Forget Poseability. There is some head, swivel at the shoulder, ball at the elbow, ball at the hip, hinge at the knee, foot. And this is the problem. This section and the top weighs so much, and these joints are so loose. This pin and at the knee on both legs is incredibly loose. And that's nothing compared to the pin at the feet. These feet, I'm putting virtually no pressure on these, and they're moving like crazy. And you saw the figure, I mean, sometimes I get lucky, but if I walk by, it will fall over eventually. Now, that being said, the figure's, it's a nice mold. I like the look of the robot mode. It looks gruff and tough, and his head is in his shoulders practically. The face sculpt is really cool. I like the face sculpt, and I like the look of the treads along the arms, and he's got a huge backpack, and he can actually kind of flip the guns up on his back so he can act like a bombardier or a bomber. And I like it. I like the mode. I like the robot. I think it looks cool. It's got a lot of nice molding on it. It's just a shame he has trouble standing. He has no heels to speak of, which he really needs, and his feet are just super floppy. Transformation for the guy is pretty darn simple. Take the head, push it into the body. Fold the fists up into the forearms, and then point the arms at the sky like this. And he's got this in and out motion, or articulation, which doesn't really do anything. So, oh, I goofed up. I'm sorry. You do not point the arms at the sky. What you do is you leave the arms like that, and then fold the forearms up and peg them into place. Now, pegging them into place isn't super easy, but you peg it in, you fold it up, and then you peg that peg into that hole. And kind of goes, you do have to force it a little bit, and then when you do that, there's a peg on the outside that you peg into the inside like this. So there we go. Now for the legs, fold the feet up, turn the legs like that, and fold them up to the rest of the body, and then just kind of work it to the back of the figure like that. So turn it so that the front of the leg is facing in, fold it up, and just get it plugged in there. It does take it looks easy, but sometimes you just got to do it a couple of times, and pieces do have a tendency to pop off very easily. Then take this piece in the back, fold it down over the back of the figure, and then take the connector and just fold that straight down. And that did not go on quite smoothly. And there we go. We got this hover tank thing. I like this. I like this a lot. I think the hover tank works. I think it's a cool little tank. I really like the hover tank. Now, folks who have actually played the video game, Fall of Cybertron, will note that there is another mode he kind of gets into, and I'm not really sure how he does it. He just kind of starts folding bits out, so you can, not sure if it's the front that he folded out or if he actually folds out the legs, but he kind of gets this weird standing cannon embankment mode that I guess you can kind of just set him up like this. So he's got kind of a cannon embankment mode. Yeah, that works. Yeah, actually that works pretty well. So yeah, there we go. He's got a cannon embankment mode that is just plain silly. Overall, though, this figure isn't too bad, except in robot mode. The robot mode is terrible. The vehicle mode is pretty cool, and plus he's got this extra little cannon mode that you can play with. Taking a look at the different sizes of the vehicle modes compared to one another, they are actually pretty similar, except for Swindle over there. He's just much taller than everybody. But, you know, this makes a good-looking crew. Now let's take a quick look at the vehicle modes compared to some other FOC figures. First off, taking a look at the ground vehicles, you can see they're all pretty much the same, and Onslaught does pretty much resemble Optimus Prime. And the vehicle modes are pretty good in and of themselves. And as you can see, the flyers are pretty much the same size as well, with Shockwave just being a little bit longer due to the way his transformation works. Now we are going to move into the combination, and to start with, let's look at the weapons. Now these guys do combine. To start off with, we're going to take Swindle's gun and Brawl's gun and plug them together. Then we take that and drop that right onto Onslaught's weapon, and that pegs into place quite nicely. Next, we're going to take Blastoff's weapon and plug the swords into Blastoff's weapons, like that. And then those peg into the bottom of Onslaught's, like that. So there we go. His super mega stabby gun. Starting with Swindle and Brawn first, since they are going to form the legs, we'll start off with Brawn here. First, we're going to take the rear and pop that open, and then fold up the connector. Then take the turret, unpeg it, swivel it around, and then fold out the sheath like that. And then fold this back part all the way down, and there are two tabs on the guns, and those two tabs peg into the back for a nice, stable leg. That's leg number one. Leg number two is a little bit more difficult. What we're going to do is first unpeg the arms, disconnect the two halves. Then we reach here and pull this out. And by pulling that out, what I really mean is going around to the other side and taking your thumb, see this purple part, or take your finger and pull on this hinge, and that will actually pull out the connector. Don't try to reach in and pull it yourself, because that won't work too well. Now this is where things get a little weird for Swindle. What we're going to do is now come in here and peg it back in while it's free, and fold the bumper up. So while it's free and open like that, peg it into the top part like that, and then take the arms and rotate them up and around here in the front. And the way I did this the other day, or last night, the first time I did this, was I was actually able to peg the arms, or the hands, into these pegs. Unfortunately, that does not look like it's going to work this time. So, yeah, that is not going to work. I was able to do it the other night, so for now, we can just fold the arms like this and kind of just tuck them up under the vehicle mode and leave them off to the side. And actually, you know what? I think I pegged it into the wrong spot, because it's supposed to sit flush like that, so I think these are supposed to peg into the bottom. The directions I have are not clear, so you just have to kind of fiddle with it until you can get things to line up the way you want them. Now, according to pictures I've seen, the arms are supposed to go up like this. Like I said last night, I was able to plug the hands in there, so you know what, just forget it, leave it, move on. So here is a leg. That's still, there we go. There we have a leg. So we've got the legs ready to go. What about the torso? For the torso, we will take Onslaught and kind of transform him back into robot mode a little bit. So fold the legs, fold the arms out, fold up the body. Now the directions say you're supposed to start from robot mode, but you could start from either. So once you get to this point, what you're going to do is fold the legs up again, turn the legs around like this, and fold this section up to form the crotch plate. Take the arms and turn them around so they can grab those pegs I was talking about earlier, like that. And then fold, well, I don't want to do that now. Fold it down and then peg the hands in. And then turn Bruticus' head around. So there is the torso. Oops. For blast off, we'll pretty much leave him as is, but we will unpeg the legs like this. And the one side for mine is always harder to unpeg. Reach under the nose cone, or flip up the nose cone, and then flip down the peg. Now, for the arm, this is actually pretty interesting. What you're going to do is take the feet and fold them up just so they're pointing 90 degrees from the body. And then turn the arms around, or turn the legs around, sorry, so that you can plug those bits into each other. And then before we do that, we'll fold out the hand. And you can fold out both thumbs or only one thumb. Peg these pieces in together. And there we have an arm. Now, Vortex is the most complicated of all of them. I like to collapse the wing here, then pretty much just kind of untransform him. Fold that forward, and then what you need to do is actually fold that forward, unpeg the back, and let it flop forward like that. And when you do that, split the legs open, fold up the needle nose, and fold out the hand. Like that. And fold the legs up again. Fold the connector down. Turn the legs. And then flip the thumb around. And there's another leg, or there's another limb. Combination time. Torso. Leg number 1. Leg number 2. Arm number 1. And arm number 2. And flip up the shoulder staff thingies. Finally, there are 2 pegs right there. And there are 2 peg holes up here. So you can peg the gun into his back. Here is Bruticus, ladies and gentlemen. This is the official way to have him transformed. Now, I will be the first to tell you that I think the arms look absolutely ridiculous. They look horrible. They are just too damn long. But we do have a fix for that, which I'll show you in a little bit. But overall, I gotta say, this thing holds together amazingly well. The connector ports that they're using are... I'm a little worried that they're fragile. I'm worried that they're gonna break at some point, but for right now, they are strong, and they hold this guy together really well. And this thing looks good. It does not look bad at all. I'm really actually surprised. I've jokingly called it the Skittles Megazord, or the Bruticus Megazord, just because of the colors. But I kind of dig it. I definitely see this is actually pretty nice. It's not perfect, mind you, but it's pretty good. Now, I did mention that there are other ways we can combine him, and that is true. And I'm going to show you that right now, because we can swap these limbs up. To turn the feet into limbs, the first thing we're going to do is take Brawl here, unpeg what are the legs, and fold them straight down. Take this back piece and fold it all the way down like that. And reach behind, or on the sides of the legs, and fold out hands. And then twist the legs together, and then twist the legs and join the legs together to form hands. And then you could fold thumbs out on either side. I just fold thumbs out on both sides. And then collapse the cannon. So that is the limb for one side. Now, and these will unpeg very easily. So as the limb for one side, doesn't really matter because you're going to have screw holes showing no matter what. So for Swindle, his is a little bit more complicated. We're going to unpeg him, and when I transformed it first Bruticus, or transformed with foot first time, I forgot to fold his feet out. So what we could do is we'll reach, since that's going to be the, let's say that's going to be the left, reach under here and flip out the right hand. Flip this down, and then just find a way to put this somewhere and get the arms out of the way. Actually, this is where I was able to peg the hands in. So this, what I said earlier, was put that forward and then peg the arms in to the top bumper. Now you'll see what I mean in a minute. For the guys that were the arms before, this is going to be a little tricky, but for Blastoff it's actually quite easy. So start by folding the hands up and actually just return it back to his shuttle form. That's really all we're going to do. There we go. So just return it to his shuttle form, and then instead of pegging him in like this, I like to turn him to the side and have him peg in like this. And you'll see why in a minute. Now for Vortex, we're going to do something a little bit more complicated. Okay, a lot a bit more complicated. First, once you've got the helicopter mode to this point, what we're going to do is there are peg holes right here, and there are pegs right there. Push those together and, you know, pop some things out of place. That's okay, just kind of leave it. Then fold up the helicopter nose and kind of collapse it up into the body. Because what we're going to do is this top edge, it will fit right into this groove. So fold that up, there we go. And then we've got ourselves a heel built in. So here's the flat part, and then here's the heel. So it sits nice and sturdy. So here we have the legs. Here's the second way to combine Bruticus, using Swindle and Brawl as the arms and Blastoff and Vortex as the legs. And it works for the most part. I think my biggest problem with it is just Brawl looks silly. I mean, you've got a Jeep-like vehicle with a hand, and then you've got Brawl. It doesn't totally work. So is there a way to combine this guy so he doesn't look ridiculous? Well, more ridiculous than he would look anyway. This is the way I prefer to have him combined, with Swindle being an arm and Blastoff being a leg. And the reason I do this is because I think this is the most balanced. This, pretty much for me, works the best. It's not perfect, mind you, but I like this the best. I think this is the best way he looks. Now you might be wondering, why do I have Blastoff the way I do? Why is he turned to the side? Well, this is the reason Blastoff is turned to the side. Not sure how well that's showing up, but there is about 5 or 6 millimeters of difference between this area and this area in where it touches the floor, or where it's standing. So that means that, there, that's better. That means that there is clearance there. That if you turned this section to face forward, this is the tail, this is the top of the tail fin, he has a tendency to fall over, and there's nothing to catch him. So there's no front foot actually touching the ground. This is why I turn Blastoff to the side when he's a leg. Are the Combaticons worth having in your collection? I'm going to say yes. I like it. It's not perfect by any means. This is not a perfect set, but it's fun. And believe it or not, I like this color scheme. It works for me. Maybe that's because I'm a fan of Sentai and Power Rangers, but it works for me for some reason. So should you get this in your collection? This is a unique set. Yes, we're getting 3 repaints total. And yes, I would have liked to have had the SDCC version over this, simply because it was more in-game, and the tan colors work a lot better. But I think the reason we've gotten so many primary colors with this set is so they'll appeal to kids. Let's face it, kids don't really like things colored brown all that much, and they're not going to be interested in Gen 2 camo repaints. So that's why I think this set has these bright Power Ranger-esque colors. Like I said, this set isn't perfect. There's plenty of problems with all of these figures, but I think they are definitely more together than alone, and Bruticus is by far more than the sum of his parts.